Hey everybody, welcome to the podcast. It's your old pal Todd here talking about worship, trying something totally new. For the previous two podcasts, they've been audio podcasts over at soundcloud.com that I've then linked around. All right, and you actually may be listening to this one on SoundCloud. I'm going to tell you what's cool, what's happening. While I'm recording in my little field recorder right here, I'm also recording video on my webcam. So we're actually doing this podcast as a SoundCloud file and as a YouTube video. A lot of you know that I'm on YouTube a lot. I post a lot of vlogs and videos. And so I thought, well, shoot, that's kind of what I'm used to more than anything. Why don't I do these as videos? And so this is kind of both. So thank you. If you're watching the YouTube video, thanks for doing that. If you're a SoundCloud listener, awesome. Hopefully we have both of these things available as we talk about worship leading. I'm here in my house. It's Monday afternoon. Got the windows open. I'm just relaxed. I'm ready to talk about worship. Ready to rant a little bit. I hope not too much. So anyway, thanks for watching or listening. So I really appreciate it. A few weeks ago, I'd asked for questions, worship questions, and I got some good ones. I got two that I really liked, and so I'm going to answer those two questions. And then there's this third thing that I just wanted to talk about with regard to worship. I was going to do it over at BethelSongs.com, but that didn't really, I kept trying to write it, and it just felt snarky and weird, and I didn't want it to be that. I wanted it to be much more encouraging, and so I'm going to do it here. So we'll answer the two questions, and then I'll talk about this third thing. Hopefully as an encouragement to you. If you're a worship leader, I hope it encourages you. And I hope you feel the freedom to share it with people that you might know who might need some encouragement as well. I know I need a haircut. I'm supposed to get one tomorrow. I know I've got like a giant head already, just on its own. It's giant. But if you're watching the video, I know I need a haircut. So I know I need a haircut. You know I need a haircut. Let's just get past it, okay? All right, let's get to question one. For these questions, I'm actually not giving props to anybody because one of them came through and was a little more, I don't want to say sensitive, but was real specific to a situation, and so I don't want to shout out anybody and get any of my worship leader pals and podcast friends in trouble. So not going to give the references of kind of who had these questions, but I think they're really good questions, and I think they really fit what worship leaders deal with. And so the first question I got was great. It's just the question of, why are we still fighting over music? Why does it seem like the worship war is still going on? Well, I do think that's a thing that's going to keep happening. I don't think it's the same intensity as it was back in what we call the worship wars. When the worship wars were going on, really for some churches in the late 80s, for most churches all through the 90s, the worship wars there were huge. They had far-reaching implications. I mean, you had churches having significant disputes, both corporately and internally. You had people wanting to split off. You had some churches who did split. It was huge. It was battle lines being drawn and really made enemies of brothers and sisters in Christ. That's not exactly what's going on now. People still disagree about music. That still happens. I don't think it's as dangerous or incendiary as it used to be. Whereas the worship wars that we experienced 20, 30 years ago were about style, were about preference. I think the worship wars we have now are about balance. I think that for the most part, churches that are disagreeing about music now are not striving for, give me just my preference. I don't believe that it's even a matter of, I want this style and you want this style. I think that people are wanting balance. I think there are people who obviously have a place reserved in their mind and hearts for things that are more simple, things that are more modern and relevant, that are easy to listen to, and that are that fit easy with the other things they listen to during the week. I think most people in church have a space for that. And at the same time, I think most people have a space for things that are familiar and things that are a little bit more poetic, written a little bit more creatively, a little more unique and diverse. I think that most churchgoers have both of those things, held in balance, or in some measure, some semblance of balance, I should say. But I think that's what our worship wars are about. I don't think people want anymore a church service that's all spacey, ambient, 9-minute, I love you, I love you, I love you songs. I don't think people want that the whole time. I also don't think that people want 7 hymns all with 9 verses. Some churches do that, and some churches do that. I get that. But I think when you have a worship where you have people disagreeing, it's usually wanting to find a way to do both of those things. And so for a worship leader, that's actually not a bad thing. When someone comes to you and says, hey, I really wish we did some more old stuff. Or in your case, they may go, I really wish we did more new stuff. You should really rejoice in that, because that's a person who is speaking about balance. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do what they say. If you are working hard at balance and you feel confident, you and the church leadership feel like it's a balanced service and a balanced music ministry, balanced worship service, you can say that. You can say, hey, we work real hard, I feel real confident. Doesn't mean you have to cotton to whatever they're saying, but it is such a beautiful thing. And you have to realize, if you were a worship leader in 1992 and you were doing this, it would have been way different. Your job would have been in danger if enough people didn't like the style you were doing. So for churches, for worship leaders, when people step up and speak this way, they're asking for something that's really greater and better than you think. So I think we're always going to have that, and that's what that's what I do. Listen, when I get a complaint or someone feels like it's unbalanced, even if I don't agree with them, or even if I don't know if I agree with them yet, one thing I'm very honest with is I go, you know what, I do need balance. We are working at balance. We're trying to do that. I try to be very honest, and I'll tell people all the time, thank you so much. Sometimes I feel like we really hit it out of the park, and sometimes we don't. Worship leaders are way too defensive, and we have to turn that part of us down and just listen as pastors. And sometimes it's a teaching moment where you can maybe help someone understand better what you do. I don't think there's anything wrong with telling someone, if you feel this way, hey, our church is not for everybody. This is what we feel like we need to do. There's nothing wrong with that. But we've got to stop being so defensive. And when people say that, we've got to just have a conversation and be honest with them and say, yeah, I do want balance. Thank you for that. So I don't know if that answers that question. I do think worship leaders need to prepare themselves for this is a thing you'll always deal with. Now, what I love about this episode is that question 2 is the perfect companion to question 1. In fact, it is the most real-world, practical example of what I was just talking about. A while back, a worship leader that I know received this question from one of his congregants. Why don't we sing more songs we can clap to? Now, that's a great question. If you've been a worship leader very long, you might feel some of that ire in you kind of rising, like you get that defensive thing that we have, and you hear that question, you're like, Don't. That's a great question. It's a beautiful question. It's a place we can learn. Here's why. The musician in you and the musician in me, when we get a question like that, we would go, bro, you can clap to anything. What does that even mean, dude? I don't even know what that means. You just complaining. You're just causing problems. Well, maybe that guy is trying to cause a problem. There are people in your church who like to cause problems. I'm not saying that. But most of the time, there's something bigger and better at play than just that specific question. And so, for this worship leader, I was fortunate enough to talk to him about this. As we, he kind of told me what the question was. And I thought, oh, this is cool. Let me try to find out what's going on. And so in that case, as the worship leader and I kind of talked it out, and I did. I mean, I was asking a lot of questions because I want to understand, hey, what sort of songs are y'all playing? What's the service like? Those sort of things. Actually, to be completely honest, I didn't ask. I just started making guesses. I just started going, all right, well, here's what I'm going to guess your set is like. Here's what I'm going to guess, the way you guys do it. And he was very honest, going, yes, we do that, not that as much. But what we sort of came to, what we discovered on our own, and we could be totally wrong about this, but I think we're probably somewhere in the vicinity of being correct on this, is that this worship leader, as of late, has done more sort of serious songs. Maybe not even slower in tempo, but just sort of heavy worship songs. You know what I mean? Just big themes, big soaring melodies, very, very emotional, just kind of these sort of the cry of our hearts, God. These very serious songs, very heavy songs. Songs that are right in the worship pocket. We're worshiping God. But in their case, they don't do very many light songs. Meaning they don't do songs that are relatively fast. They don't do songs that are relatively simpler in their theme. They don't do songs that are a little bit more surface, a little more what we used to call happy clappy. Now, that's that worship leader's call. He and his pastor have to decide what their worship identity is, what they're going to do. But when someone's asking something like that, like, why can't we clap to this? I want something that I can clap to. A lot of times what they're actually asking for is, I want something that feels very natural to me, that I can hear the rhythm, I can feel it, it feels like I can find the groove. Because when they can find that, when they're looking for that, what they're really looking for is the ability to sing with you, that the phrasing of the song. I know this is getting really practical, but I don't... Please do not sleep on the happy clappy songs. They're great. And I'll tell you why they're great. Because they're easy to sing. Okay? Faster songs and songs that are a little lighter in subject matter have better phrasing. It's also the reason why people sing their guts out on hymns. Now, I'm not saying hymns are surface things. But one of the reasons that people sing so loud on hymns is the syllable count. That when you sing a hymn, the first verse has the same number of syllables that the second verse has. And it's just easier to get into. And so, as this worship leader and I were talking, what we sort of figured out was, we think what this guy's actually asking is, hey, can we play some stuff that's a little bit easier for me to get into? Now, I can't get to the, hands up, screaming my worship to heaven. I can't get there in song 1 or song 2 or song 3. The mistake that worship leaders make all the time is that they assume too much of the congregation. If I'm not careful, I'll do it. If you're not careful, you'll do it. Worship leaders assume too much of the congregation. Sunday after Sunday after Sunday, so many of us get up and we plan this set and we are so into it. And song 1 is going to be so awesome. And we just assume that the sound mix and the way the band plays it, added to the spiritual condition of the people, that's going to create this explosion of worship in song 1. Listen, stop expecting people to worship on song 1. Just stop. I'm not saying worship's not a priority. I'm not saying they shouldn't. I'm telling you, stop making that a big deal. For most of us, when we start song 1, we are leading people who are barely getting to church on time, or who've had a stressful week, and maybe they haven't even given a thought to God that morning. It's not good. It's not the ideal. But if you step up to lead worship and you realize, all right, 20, 30, 40% of these people aren't ready. They didn't show up ready. And so as I lead them, I've got to, as best I can, take them from where they are and get them to a place of readiness. To hear God's word, to worship, to surrender their lives to God. Stop assuming that they're going to be with you from song 1. Most of the time, they're not. If you're at a church where they are, God bless you. Never leave that place. Because I'm going to tell you something. That's the exception. But if you as a worship pastor will think, where are these people? What do they need to know? How do they need to be led? What is the journey of worship? You'll pick different songs at the top of the set. You will pick songs that help people get to that place of surrender, get to that place of worship. Okay? That probably feels like a lot of finger pointing for me, but I'm telling you, you ought to try it. You ought to try it. As a worshiper, you ought to try it. That means you may have to do songs you don't want to do. That means you may have to do a song that you think's dumb. Or a song that your band can play blindfolded. Good. Do it. If it helps your people, if it leads your people, do it. Sacrifice your own preference. Sacrifice your own need for worship on the stage. Sacrifice all of that, if you have to, so that you can get your mind focused on leading people. Yes, you should be worshiping. Yes, I want you to feel it when you lead it. But listen, you don't do those people any good if all you do is get up there and just feel it. If it's all about you feeling it, you've wasted their time. Now, I'm not saying that's what my worship leader friend does, but it does speak to that issue of think about people who can't get into the song very easily. Think about people who aren't as educated. Think about people who are dealing with financial struggles. Just think about those people and let that shape and form how it is you lead them on a Sunday. Okay, my last thing is this. Last encouragement for you as worship leaders. I don't know if this will hit any of you where you are, but I'm going to say it anyway. I'm going to offer it anyway, and I hope that you receive it, and I hope that it comes across the way I want it to, which is an encouragement as something said out of love. Hold on. This is such a big deal. I have to hydrate. You've probably seen some of the buzz about the new record, DVD, album thing from Bethel Church in California. Not Bethel Bible Church. We don't have any DVDs. Bethel. So this is Brian and Jen Johnson, Bill Johnson, Jesus Culture, Jeremy Riddle, all that stuff, right? You Make Me Brave and all those songs that they have. So they have this new album DVD thing. Which looks gorgeous. All I've seen is the trailer for it, so I don't know much about it. But it's a live album recording from a mountaintop. It's done outdoors. I think it's on sale now, or pre-release is going on now. Looks awesome. Probably sounds awesome. But I just want to encourage worship leaders just briefly. Like I said, I don't know if this lands. I don't know if it matters. But here's what I'm going to say. The worship music machine doesn't care about you as much as you think they do. This is my theory. The worship music industry is not primarily concerned with resourcing the local church, for the most part. Their primary concern is making great art, making great songs, spreading their cause or their agenda. That's what the worship music industry is primarily concerned with. I think they're secondarily concerned with being a resource. So I'm not saying they don't care about that at all. But these are artists, okay? These are professional performers. These are musicians and writers and players and producers and engineers and overdub specialists and Photoshop guys. I mean, it's this team of people who are tasked with producing something that is awesome and that is compelling and that is inspiring. What the worship music industry does, accidentally, probably, is actually very discouraging to guys like you and me. It's extremely discouraging. Because you go online and you buy the Blu-ray and you get the Blu-ray and you turn it on and it sounds awesome and it looks awesome and everybody in the crowd is falling over or screaming or barking or hopping all over the place, and you watch that and you think, ugh, man, my church sucks. I've thought that before, and you probably have too. In some form, you've sat there and go, man, if we just had a building like that, our worship would be great. Man, I wish my people would get off their butts and do something. Get a little loud, get a little crazy. This is about Jesus. Okay. Stands to reason maybe your people could be more engaged. Stands to reason you may need a new building. At Bethel, we're in an old gym. That we tried to turn into a sanctuary. I'd love a new building. A new building would be great. The problem is that you can watch that stuff and get so discouraged. So this is what I want to tell you. With your crappy sound and your volunteer musicians who don't have time to practice, and your weird church schedule, and your bad guitar, or your low worship budget, with all of that stuff that seems like the jankiest set of circumstances, chances are you're exactly where you need to be. As crappy as it all is, as poorly you compare to Elevation or Jesus Culture or Bethel or North Point or Saddleback or as bad as that may seem to you, you're the person God's put there. You're there for those people. Do not worry for a second about your bad projection. Do not worry for a second about your terrible parking. And do not get envious of something that cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to make. Don't sit around and whine and complain to yourself or to your spouse about how your church needs to get with the times. You're there because God put you there. This week, you show up and you lead well and you love well. Listen to Bethel if you want to. That's fine. That's fine. Listen to them, love them, use their songs, all that stuff. But don't for a second think that that's prescriptive. That stuff is not put out for you to model or for you to chase. That stuff's not put out for that. So enjoy it and love it. But rejoice in where you are. Rejoice in where you are. You are making an impact on lives you'll probably never know the full impact. And when such a time comes, as God moves you somewhere else, then you say, thank you, Lord, for this place. And you go somewhere, and maybe by God's grace, they've got a better sound system or in-ear monitors or environmental projection, or it's on a mountaintop. Maybe by God's grace, you go there. But we cannot let the worship music industry make us covetous or discouraged. Take what you can use, but be local and be loving. Love people. Love the people you lead. Lead them well. Challenge them. Be truthful with them. But enjoy where God's placed you. He's not an idiot. God's put you there and given you the opportunity for a reason. So don't for a second start wishing you were at Bethel or Elevation. Don't for a second wish that you were some other church. Show up, love, and lead well.